episode of Live, Eat, Be Well. And now I'm going to show you how I make my pinto beans, which is the exact same way that I make my black beans and almost the same way that I make my chickpeas. And I'll show you the one difference that I use on chickpeas, but I don't have any chickpeas today, so I can't show you how I make them. But when it gets to that time, I'll show you what I do. So let's get started. First things first, other than being the realist, I use these kind of pinto beans. So as you can see, I buy this giant 25-pound bag of pinto beans. Okay, so I scooped out 5 cups of pinto beans and rinsed them in the sink. And sometimes I get some floaters. I like to pull those out. Oh, sorry, you can't see me doing that. And now I'm going to bring those to a boil. And I'm going to let them boil for 2 minutes. And then I'm going to let them sit for 2 hours. Now, people have lots of different opinions on this kind of method, but I don't have the patience or the foresight to let them soak overnight. Some people say you don't need to soak your beans overnight, blah, blah, blah. I've tried it lots of different ways. This is the way that I prefer to do it. So I'm going to let them boil for 2 minutes, soak for 2 hours, and then I'll see you back here. Okay, so our beans have been sitting on the stove for 2 hours. So what I'm going to do now is move the camera so you can see. I'm going to just drain them over the sink. Just going to drain them, and then I'm just going to kind of run some cold water over them. Okay, then I'm going to, I can't see because I'm just going to pour them back into my pot. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see in the pot actually. Hold this up. They plumped up quite a bit. So now I'm going to pour water over the top to cover them, and then I'm going to try to put about that much water on top of them. Now, while they're cooking, what's going to be key is to keep coming back and just checking on them to make sure that all the water hasn't been absorbed or evaporated, and because you don't want them to be dry. So sometimes you have to add a little bit more water during the cooking process, but usually if you put about that much over the top of the beans, you're going to be safe. Okay, so now I've put them back on the stove, and I've turned my stove to high, and I'm going to bring them up to a boil. And while they're sitting there, I'm going to add my seasoning. So what I have here are 3 vegetable bouillon cubes. I use the low sodium variety, and I'm actually going to make a video when my new shipment comes in about the kind I use, but I'll link to the Amazon flavor, the Amazon variety that I buy down below. They're my favorite. They're super tasty. So I put 3 of those in, even though it's a lot of water, and it would normally call for way more than 3. I only put in 3. Okay. Then I put in some no salt seasoning. It says Spike on the front, which is a brand of no salt seasoning, but that's not what's in here. It's the Kirkland's brand of no salt seasoning, and I just eyeball it, and so just so it covers kind of the top of the water. So it was like half that jar, so that's probably like, what do you think, 3 tablespoons? 4 tablespoons maybe of the no salt seasoning. And then the best ingredient of all, and this is the one you can't do without, no matter what anybody tells you, or if you've tried to use this in the past and been unsuccessful, you have to try it again, is liquid smoke. So there's lots of different varieties depending on where you live in the United States or outside of the country, but this is just natural hickory. I have mesquite and apple cedar wood too, but anyway, it doesn't really matter what flavor you use, they all taste delicious. So then I'm gonna put in like a couple dashes of liquid smoke. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so 6 dashes of liquid smoke. Then I'm gonna bring that up to a boil. Then I'm gonna turn it down to a simmer, and I'm gonna let it simmer for 2 hours. And then I'll come back and show you the next step. Okay, So my beans have finished cooking. I took them off the stove and I drained them into my strainer, and I've let them sit on just in the strainer for about 25 minutes, just kind of cooling off so they're cool enough for me to work with. Then I have my just regular sized, I don't know, pork sandwich sized bag, Ziploc bags, and a cup size measuring cup. And I'm just gonna measure into this. It's not an exact science here. Because I have a bigger family, I'm gonna do 3 cups, because that's what it would take for us about to eat dinner. So 3 cup size. Then I'm just gonna zip those up, and I'm gonna toss those into my freezer, and then they will be good to go. And I do that with pinto beans, black beans, and chickpeas. So, and you want to kind of squeeze the air out. So that's how I finish up my beans. Okay, so I filled up 4 of these bags, and so then I'm just going to toss them in the freezer. And I just wanted to give you some idea of how I use them. When I'm ready to use them, I just pull them out of the freezer and I set them on the counter to let them defrost, or I will just put them in a pan and put a little vegetable broth in there and let them heat up if I forget to let them defrost, which I do a lot. So pinto beans we use in burritos a lot, or taco kind of situation. My husband really likes these with barbecue sauce on them with rice for his lunch. It sounds gross, and I think that sounds gross, but that's what he likes to eat. So I'll just grab a bag out and toss it in his lunch, and by its lunchtime it'll be thawed out and he can just dump it over his rice and then put barbecue sauce over the top. So that's how we use them. And so I got 4 bags out of this, 1 per week. So if my husband's using them for lunch, I will normally have to make that a lot more than that. Oh, and until next time, live, eat, and be well.
I hope you'll subscribe to my channel and check out my Facebook page and website.